What if the real story was never meant to be seen? What if one of the biggest names in hip-hop quietly erased footage that could have flipped the entire narrative upside down? Because according to Jaguar Wright, that's exactly what happened behind the scenes of Diddy's explosive documentary, and the person holding the delete button was none other than 50 Cent. Now pause right there. We're talking about two power players. One, a mogul whose name has been circling headlines for all the wrong reasons. The other, a master strategist who never makes a move without 10 reasons and a backup plan. And right in the middle, Jaguar Wright, a woman who has never been afraid to say what others only whisper in private. Jaguar claims there were moments so damaging, so revealing, that they couldn't make it to the final cut. Interviews that raised eyebrows. Stories that allegedly named names. Clips that insiders say would have changed how the public views Diddy forever. And according to her, 50 Cent didn't just edit the documentary, he removed things on purpose. So the question is, what was so dangerous it had to go? Was it about power? Control? Industry secrets that go way deeper than parties and rumors? Or was it something that could have pulled other major figures into the storm? People who definitely didn't want their names trending? Jaguar says this wasn't about storytelling, it was about damage control. And here's the part that makes this even crazier. 50 Cent has built an entire brand exposing people. So why, for the first time, would he allegedly hold back? What line did the documentary cross that forced him to say, "Nah, the world isn't ready for this"? Because if Jaguar Wright is telling the truth, what we didn't see is far more shocking than what we did. And once you hear what she claims was removed, you might never look at this documentary or these industry giants the same way again. The moment Jaguar Wright opened her mouth about Diddy's documentary, the internet knew something messy was coming. This wasn't one of those vague, blink and you miss it comments. She spoke with confidence, like someone who had already seen behind the curtain and decided she had nothing left to lose. According to Jaguar, what the public watched was not the full story, not even close. She claims entire conversations, uncomfortable moments, and explosive claims were carefully removed before the documentary ever reached viewers. And the name she keeps circling back to? 50 Cent. Now here's where things get interesting. 50 Cent isn't just some random executive attached to the project. He's known for exposing people, dragging secrets into the light, and turning controversy into content. So when Jaguar suggests that he made the call to remove certain footage, people started asking one question. Why would 50 Cent protect anyone, especially Diddy? Jaguar alleges that some of the removed material wasn't just about Diddy's public controversies, but about how the industry really works behind closed doors. She hints at testimonies from people who were allegedly present at high-level events, people who knew too much, and people who had stories that went far beyond what the cameras showed. According to her, these weren't rumors. They were first-hand accounts that made even producers uncomfortable. She claims there were moments during interviews where the energy shifted, where rooms went quiet, where people looked at each other like, "This is going too far." Jaguar says those were the exact moments that never made it to the final cut. Not because they lacked evidence, but because they allegedly opened doors that couldn't be closed once the public saw them. What really fueled the gossip was Jaguar's suggestion that some footage didn't just implicate Diddy. It allegedly connected between multiple powerful figures in the entertainment industry. She implies that once those connections became clear, the documentary stopped being a story about one man and started looking like a threat to an entire system. And that's when the scissors came out. According to her, 50 Cent allegedly stepped in not as an entertainer, but as a businessman. Jaguar claims the decision wasn't emotional, it was strategic. If certain scenes aired, lawsuits could have followed. Careers could have collapsed overnight. And the blowback wouldn't have stopped with Diddy, it would have spread. Jaguar also points out something fans didn't notice at first. The documentary's tone changes. Early sections feel bold, confrontational, and fearless. But as it goes on, she says, it becomes more cautious, more polished, more safe. She believes that shift is proof that something was cut after the initial vision was already in motion. Then there's the issue of timing. Jaguar claims that some of the most revealing footage was recorded during a period when tensions in the industry were already high. Allegations were stacking up. Names were being whispered. and releasing everything at once could have created chaos no one could control. According to her, 50 Cent allegedly chose to slow the explosion instead of lighting the match. But Jaguar isn't buying the idea that this was done for the audience's benefit. She says the public was robbed of the truth, a raw, uncomfortable truth that would have forced people to ask hard questions about fame, power, and silence. In her words, the documentary we saw was the version they could live with, not the version that actually happened. She also suggests that some interviewees were shocked when they saw the final release. Jaguar hints that certain people believed their full stories would be shared, only to realize later that their most serious claims were missing. According to her, that wasn't an accident. It was a decision made at the top. And that's where 50 Cent's role becomes even more controversial. Jaguar doesn't accuse him of loyalty to Diddy. Instead, she paints him as someone who understands the chessboard better than anyone else. Someone who knows when to expose and when to hold back. In her version of events, removing the footage wasn't about protecting Diddy as a person, it was about protecting the bigger picture. Still, fans aren't convinced this was the right move. Online discussions exploded, with people dissecting scenes, questioning awkward cuts, and rewatching interviews to spot what felt off. Jaguar's claims gave those suspicions a voice. Suddenly, viewers weren't just watching a documentary. They were wondering what was missing. And Jaguar makes one thing very clear. What was removed wasn't small. It wasn't boring. And it definitely wasn't harmless. She insists that if those scenes ever surfaced, they would completely change how people see not just Diddy, but the entire entertainment industry. Whether you believe her or not, one thing is undeniable. Jaguar Wright has once again thrown a grenade into an already tense conversation. And if she's telling even part of the truth, then what we didn't see might be the most important part of the story. As Jaguar Wright kept talking, the focus shifted from what was removed to who might have been exposed if that footage had aired. And this is where the whispers turned into full-blown speculation. According to Jaguar, the documentary didn't just risk damaging Diddy's image. It allegedly threatened to pull back the curtain on relationships, favors, and long-standing industry arrangements that most fans aren't supposed to know about. She claims some interviews went completely off-script. People reportedly started naming situations instead of speaking in coded language. Timelines were allegedly laid out. Patterns started forming. And once producers realized how deep the rabbit hole went, panic quietly set in. Jaguar suggests that this wasn't the kind of controversy you could spin with good PR or a carefully written statement. One of her biggest claims is that the removed footage allegedly revealed how power protects itself in the music industry. Not just through money, but through silence. According to her, some interviewees explained how certain artists were warned early in their careers about who not to cross and what not to talk about. Jaguar says those warnings weren't threats, they were survival tips. She also hints that the documentary originally included stories from people who tried to speak up in the past and paid the price. Careers stalled. Deals disappeared. Phone calls stopped getting returned. Jaguar claims those stories made it painfully clear that what was happening wasn't random, it was organized. And once those dots were connected on camera, it allegedly became too risky to release. Then comes the part that really shook people. Jaguar implies that 50 Cent didn't just remove footage because of Diddy, but because of who else might have been affected. She suggests that some names connected to the cutscenes are still very active, very powerful, and very protected. Releasing that information could have triggered legal battles that would drag on for years. According to Jaguar, this is where the business side took over. She claims lawyers got involved. Not just one team, multiple. Questions were raised about liability, defamation, and exposure. And at that point, the documentary allegedly stopped being about telling the full truth and started becoming about minimizing fallout. Jaguar also brings up something fans didn't catch at first. Certain interviews felt unfinished. Stories that clearly had more to them suddenly ended. Sentences cut short. Emotional buildups with no payoff. According to her, those awkward moments are leftovers from edits that removed crucial context. She believes viewers were supposed to feel uncomfortable, but not that uncomfortable. What adds fuel to the fire is Jaguar's belief that some footage painted Diddy less as a lone villain and more as part of a much larger machine. She suggests that the removed material allegedly showed how people rise, fall, and are replaced, while the system stays the same. And that idea, she says, is far more dangerous than blaming one individual. Jaguar also addresses the elephant in the room. Why would anyone trust her word? Her answer is simple. She claims she's been saying the same things for years, long before documentaries, lawsuits, or trending hashtags. The difference now, she argues, is that the evidence is starting to line up with what she's been warning people about all along. She reminds listeners that many of the things she once said were dismissed as crazy or attention-seeking later turned out to be disturbingly accurate. And in her mind, this situation is no different. She believes the truth has a way of surfacing, even when someone tries to bury it in an edit room. As for 50 Cent, Jaguar doesn't portray him as scared or compromised. Instead, she frames him as calculating. Someone who knows exactly how far to go without crossing a line that can't be uncrossed. According to her, he understands that exposing too much, too fast can backfire, especially when powerful interests feel threatened. She even suggests that holding back certain footage could be a strategic move, not to protect Diddy, but to let events play out naturally, to let other stories surface. Other voices speak up. Other pieces fall into place without him being the one holding the smoking gun. But critics aren't buying that explanation. Many argue that if the truth is explosive, that's exactly why it should be shown. Jaguar acknowledges this frustration but insists that the industry doesn't operate on moral logic. It operates on leverage. And leverage, she says, is everything. She also hints that some of the removed material could resurface in other ways. Not necessarily as leaked clips, but through lawsuits, interviews, or testimonies that echo the same stories. Jaguar believes that once people feel safe enough to talk, the truth won't need a documentary to survive. What makes this situation even messier is how quiet everyone else has been. No strong denials. No detailed explanations. Just silence. And in the world of celebrity gossip, silence is rarely accidental. Jaguar sees that quiet as confirmation that something uncomfortable is being avoided. She ends this stretch of her claims with a warning. Don't assume what you saw was the whole story. According to her, the most important details are often the ones you never get to see. And when powerful people control the edit, the truth doesn't disappear. It just gets delayed. Whether Jaguar Wright is exposing reality or stirring the pot once again, one thing is undeniable. Her claims have changed how people view that documentary. Now, every cut, every pause, every missing detail feels intentional. And once that doubt sets in, it's almost impossible to watch without wondering what was left on the cutting room floor. As the conversation grew louder, people started digging deeper, not just into the documentary, but into 50 Cent's history of how he plays situations like this. Jaguar Wright leans heavily into that angle, arguing that this isn't the first time he's chosen strategy over spectacle. She reminds people that 50 is known for moving like a chess player, not a crash-out artist. He studies the board, waits, and strikes when it benefits him the most. According to Jaguar, this situation fits that pattern perfectly. She suggests that 50 Cent understands something most fans don't. Exposing everything at once can actually weaken your position. In her view, the footage that was removed isn't gone forever. It's being held. She hints that certain clips could be used later if alliances shift, lawsuits emerge, or the narrative changes in a way that benefits him. That idea alone sent gossip pages into overdrive. Jaguar claims the documentary originally included moments where Diddy's public image didn't just crack, it allegedly collapsed. She says there were scenes where contradictions became obvious, timelines didn't add up, and statements clashed with what other interviewees said on camera. According to her, those moments were powerful because they didn't rely on opinion. They relied on comparison. And that's dangerous. She believes once viewers start connecting dots on their own, the conversation becomes uncontrollable. It's no longer about allegations. It's about logic. And logic doesn't care about fame, money, or legacy. Jaguar also brings attention to the emotional weight of some interviews that were allegedly cut. She claims there were people who broke down on camera, not for sympathy, but because they were finally saying things they had carried for years. According to her, those scenes weren't dramatic in a flashy way. They were disturbing in a quiet way. The kind of footage that stays with you long after the screen goes black. She argues that removing those moments wasn't just an editorial decision, it was an emotional one. Because once the public sees that level of pain, it's impossible to brush the story off as just gossip. Another major claim Jaguar makes is that some of the removed footage allegedly challenged the timeline everyone has accepted for years. She hints that certain events may have overlapped in ways that were never publicly acknowledged. And once those overlaps were exposed, the official version of history started looking shaky. According to her, that's when the documentary crossed from storytelling into revisionism, rewriting what people thought they knew. Jaguar also suggests that industry veterans watching early cuts of the documentary immediately understood the risk. Not because they were innocent, but because they recognized familiar patterns. She implies that many people in power survived their careers by knowing when to look away, and seeing those patterns laid out on screen made them nervous. And nervous people make calls. She doesn't accuse 50 Cent of being manipulated. Instead, she paints him as someone who recognized that letting certain footage air could turn him from producer into target. Jaguar believes he knows how quickly the spotlight can shift. One moment you're exposing someone else, the next moment people start asking why you knew so much. In her words, the loudest truth can become a liability. She also addresses the idea that the documentary might have been intentionally softened to keep public focus on Diddy alone. Jaguar claims that once the story widens, accountability becomes complicated. If too many names come up, the conversation fractures. Blame becomes diluted. And sometimes, focusing the fire on one person is the safest route. But that safety, she argues, comes at the cost of honesty. Jaguar's tone becomes almost prophetic when she talks about how this story will age. She believes that years from now, people will revisit this moment and realize the documentary was only chapter 1. She suggests that what was removed will eventually surface through court records, depositions, and sworn testimony, places where editing isn't as easy. She also makes it clear that she doesn't believe silence means innocence. In her experience, silence usually means negotiations are happening behind the scenes. According to her, powerful people rarely rush to deny accusations unless they're confident the story is finished. And she doesn't think this one is finished at all. Another point she raises is how quickly public opinion can be redirected. Jaguar believes the industry is skilled at flooding timelines with distractions, news scandals, viral moments, and trending beefs, just to bury uncomfortable conversations. She hints that the timing of other celebrity drama may not be coincidental. She urges people to pay attention to what stories disappear as fast as they appear. When it comes to Diddy, Jaguar stops short of making direct accusations in this section, but her implication is clear. She believes the documentary could have been a turning point, not just for his image, but for how the industry handles accountability. And by removing key footage, that moment was delayed. Not destroyed, just delayed. She also speaks directly to viewers who feel conflicted. Those who want the truth but understand the risks. Jaguar says curiosity is natural, but patience is necessary. She believes the truth doesn't always explode. Sometimes it leaks slowly, piece by piece, until denial becomes impossible. By the end of this stretch, her message is chilling. The footage that didn't air wasn't removed because it was weak, it was removed because it was strong. Too strong to control once released. Too strong to take back. And if she's right, then what we saw wasn't the full story. It was the version that kept the peace. For now. As Jaguar Wright continued connecting the dots, the conversation shifted from what was cut to why now. She believes the timing of everything is just as important as the footage itself. According to her, this documentary didn't come out in a vacuum. It arrived at a moment when the industry was already on edge, when old stories were resurfacing and people who'd stayed silent for decades were suddenly finding their voices. Jaguar suggests that releasing everything all at once would have been like throwing gasoline on an already burning fire. She claims the removed footage allegedly showed how long certain behaviors were normalized, ignored, or quietly excused. Not because people didn't know, but because knowing wasn't enough to challenge power. According to Jaguar, the documentary briefly exposed that uncomfortable truth before pulling back at the last second. And that pullback, she says, is exactly why people should be suspicious. Jaguar also touches on the role of fear, not public fear, but industry fear. She claims there are artists, executives, and insiders who watched early versions or heard about what was recorded and immediately understood the consequences. Careers don't just end in this business, she says, they get erased. And once that reality sets in, truth becomes a luxury very few can afford. She believes that's why some people who were initially vocal went quiet, why others suddenly changed their tone, why certain interviews felt emotionally charged during filming, but distant once the final cut dropped. According to Jaguar, that emotional whiplash isn't coincidence, it's pressure. One of her more unsettling claims is that the removed footage allegedly highlighted patterns, not incidents. She says the documentary initially showed repetition, the same types of stories, the same settings, the same power dynamics, playing out over years. And once patterns become visible, excuses stop working. Jaguar argues that showing one scandal is manageable. Showing a pattern is revolutionary. She also hints that some of the most damning material didn't even involve dramatic accusations. It involved consistency. Multiple people describing the same experiences without ever speaking to each other. Similar warnings. Similar outcomes. According to her, those overlaps were impossible to ignore once placed side by side on screen. And that, she claims, is when the project crossed a line. Jaguar then turns her attention back to 50 Cent, saying people underestimate how much he understands about survival in this industry. She doesn't frame him as a hero or a villain. She frames him as someone who knows exactly how dangerous truth can be when it's released without an exit strategy. In her words, you don't pull the pin unless you're ready for the blast. She suggests that removing the footage may have been about buying time. Time for stories to surface organically. Time for legal processes to start doing the talking. Time for the public to catch up to what insiders have known for years. According to Jaguar, when the truth comes through official channels, it hits harder and sticks longer. Still, she admits that this approach comes at a cost. The cost is trust. Viewers feel manipulated. People feel like they're being given a watered-down version of reality. Jaguar understands that frustration, but she insists that frustration alone won't dismantle a system designed to protect itself. She also raises an uncomfortable possibility that some of the footage was removed not because of what it said, but because of who said it. According to her, credibility scares powerful people more than chaos. A believable voice can do more damage than 100 rumors. Jaguar implies that certain individuals were simply too credible to leave in the final cut. As the gossip around her claims grew, fans began revisiting her past statements, noticing how often they lined up with current events. Jaguar doesn't celebrate that, she warns about it. She says being right in an industry like this usually means you paid a price long before anyone believed you. And she believes more people are about to pay that price. She closes her argument by saying the documentary wasn't the end, it was a test. A test to see what the public would accept. A test to see how much outrage would stick. A test to see how fast attention would move on. And according to her, the real story will unfold based on how people react after the cameras stop rolling. Jaguar's final message in this section is chillingly calm. Footage can be removed, stories can be edited, and narratives can be shaped. But truth doesn't expire. It waits. It resurfaces. And when it does, it doesn't ask permission. If she's right, then what was cut from that documentary isn't lost. It's postponed. And the longer it stays hidden, the louder it may eventually become. Because in Jaguar Wright's world, silence isn't peace. It's pressure building. If you've made it this far, one thing is clear. This story didn't just entertain you, it unsettled you. And that feeling you're sitting with right now, that's exactly why conversations like this matter. Because when documentaries feel incomplete, when stories feel edited a little too carefully, it's on us to keep asking questions. This channel exists for one reason, to look past the headlines and talk about what isn't being said. if Jaguar Wright is even halfway right, then what we watched wasn't the full truth. It was a preview. And previews are designed to test reactions, not deliver conclusions. That's why your voice matters here. The more people discuss, question, and challenge these narratives, the harder it becomes for powerful stories to quietly disappear. So here's what I need you to do right now. Hit that subscribe button, not just for updates, but so you don't miss the moments when these stories evolve. Because they always evolve. Today it's a documentary. Tomorrow it's a court filing. Next week it's an interview that suddenly changes everything. And when that happens, you'll want to be here before the internet rewrites the timeline. Drop a like if you believe there's more to this story than what we were shown. That simple action pushes this conversation further, puts it on more screens, and tells the algorithm that people are paying attention. And trust me, attention is the one thing narratives can't survive without. Now, I really want to hear from you. Do you think footage was intentionally removed to protect bigger names? Do you believe 50 Cent was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers? Or do you think Jaguar Wright is once again saying the quiet part out loud before the world is ready to listen? Let me know in the comments, because this conversation doesn't end when the video does. And don't forget to share this video with someone who watches documentaries and takes them at face value. Sometimes all it takes is one different perspective to make people rewatch something with new eyes. We're going to keep covering stories like this, the uncomfortable ones, the controversial ones, the ones that make people nervous. Because silence only works when everyone agrees to it. And here, we don't agree. Stay locked in, stay questioning, and stay right here, because the parts they don't show are usually the ones that matter the most.